Maritime English. Conversations on merchant vessel. 98 Meeting for receiving fuel oil.
Chief Engineer, Third Engineer, we're going to be receiving fuel oil from a barge starting at 10 o'clock today. This is the bunkering plan. The total quantity will be 1,250 tons, and it will be loaded in all tanks except for the number 1 port and starboard fuel oil tanks. Our tanks should be 75% full after receiving the fuel. Third Engineer, that should be easy because we will have plenty of extra space in the tank if it's being filled to only 75% capacity. Chief Engineer, you're right. But you have to keep in mind that you can't be too careful when doing these kinds of operations. Third Engineer, believe me, I'll keep it in mind. Doing this always makes me a little nervous. Which manifold are we going to use? Chief Engineer, we'll use the starboard side. Remember to sign off as the person responsible for the operation. And, on the list, write the names of the number 1 oiler and the wiper as sharing the responsibility. Third Engineer, yes, sir. May I do the remote control valve and the level alarm device's operational test when we get to the final stage? Chief Engineer, yes. Confirm that it's shut, then lash the number 1 suction valves for the port and starboard tanks. We won't be loading these tanks. Third Engineer, okay, I will. I'll start preparing to receive our supply. Should we put in the plugs on the deck before we begin? And after that prepare the starboard manifold? Number 1 oiler, for sure. Let's put in the plugs for the oil spill tanks.
Barge, a flat-bottomed service boat. Bunkering plan, a schedule for supplying fuel. Keep in mind, not to forget, try to remember. Remote control valve, a valve which is opened or closed by means of a faraway control device. Level alarm device, an indicator that shows if the amount of liquid goes below or above a specific level. Lash, to tie with a rope and the like. Suction valve, a valve which allows the intake of air, water, fuel, etc. Oil spill tank, a tank used to collect any spilled oil, used to prevent ocean pollution.
99 Receiving fuel oil at the starboard manifold. Third Engineer, number 1 oiler, we've finished putting in the plugs for the scuppers and spill tanks. Let's start preparing the starboard manifold. Number 1 oiler, the fuel oil transfer procedure and a drawing of the fuel oil loading pipeline are displayed on the starboard side manifold for your reference. Third Engineer, should we prepare the tools and emergency equipment? Number 1 oiler, they're always stowed in the center store on deck. Let's go get the stuff we need. Wiper, I'll get rags from the consumable store, so you two go ahead. Number 1 oiler, can you do it by yourself? Wiper, yes, I'll use a cart to carry them. Third Engineer, okay, here's the sounding scale, the oil receiver can, sawdust, sand, oil dispersant, fire extinguishers, and so on. It looks like we have all the tools and emergency equipment. Number 1 oiler, I forgot to set the pressure gauge and thermometer on the pipe, now we can't read the inside pressure and temperature. Third Engineer, it'll be fine, but thanks for letting me know. We've finished preparations for the starboard manifold, so let's tell the Chief Engineer that we are ready. By transceiver, Chief Engineer, this is Third Engineer. We've finished the preparations for the starboard side manifold.
Scupper, an opening on the deck to let water flow out. Spill tank, a pit provided on the deck to collect spilled fuel, liquid, etc. Fuel oil transfer procedure, a set course of action for moving fuel oil from one place to another. Fuel oil loading pipeline, an enclosed pipeline system used for loading fuel onto a ship. Rags, tattered, worthless bits of cloth. Sounding scale, instrument used to measure the depth of a liquid. Oil receiver can, a can for collecting drained oil. Oil dispersant, a chemical used to drive off or break apart oil. Fire extinguisher, a device used to put out fires using chemicals. Pressure gauge, an instrument used for measuring the pressure.
100 receiving fuel oil. Third engineer, chief engineer, this is third engineer. I've confirmed the receiving quantity and that the wires are sealed for each tank of the barge. Also, I've checked the temperature, the specifications of the oil, and the amount of water in the fuel oil, and everything looks fine. The specific gravity is 0.9756, the temperature, 48 degrees centigrade, viscosity, 280 centistokes at 50 degrees centigrade. I also confirmed with the barge that they'd be stopping the supply flow from their end. Chief Engineer, Roger. I asked a duty officer to hoist the B flag and to announce that we're starting the bunkering. Okay, please open the starboard manifold stop valve. Third Engineer, all preparations are complete. I'll open the starboard manifold stop valve now. Chief Engineer, keep it running at a slow rate. Third Engineer, commenced bunkering at 10:05, sir. The fuel oil has just passed through the manifold, sir. Everything looks good, sir. Chief Engineer, Third Engineer, I haven't confirmed the oil flow into the tanks yet, so will you ask them to gradually increase the flow rate a little? Third Engineer, Roger. I'll ask them to gradually increase the flow rate. Right now, the pressure at the manifold is 1.5 kilos, and the temperature is 42 degrees centigrade. The loading rate is now 300 cubic meters per hour, sir. Chief Engineer, thank you. I've confirmed the flow into the tanks. Please keep your eyes on the pipeline and the sea surface at all times for any possible signs of trouble.
Temperature, hotness or coldness of the body or the environment. Specific gravity, ratio which compares the mass of a substance to a mass of water of equal volume. Centigrade, Celsius. Viscosity, stickiness. Stop valve, a valve which stops the flow of something inside. Cubic meters, a unit of volume.